So how do you do it? What's it all about? Mike keeps talking about this financial independence, this retiring early movement. I think I've talked about this on my channel several times now, but this video is going to codify the 4% rule. There's 3 different types of fire. There's like lean fire, regular fire, there's fat fire, and then of course there's mini fires. And there's just so many different variations of fire. And that's why I love financial independence, retired early. The whole movement around fire is that you can basically architect the life that you want to live. So it's about freedom. But it comes from a place of understanding how to master your relationship with money. Hey everyone, Mike Rosehart here. You can retire in under 5 years. I've said this before on the channel, I'm going to say it again. Anyone can retire in about 5 years if they become dedicated to the fire movement and they absorb all the tenets and principles of fire. So how do you do it? What's it all about? Mike keeps talking about this financial independence, this retiring early movement. Maybe you don't want to retire, maybe you just want financial independence, maybe you want to pursue your dreams or your hobbies, and you just want to unlock the need to grind or work for someone else for the rest of your life. You want to choose to work each and every day and do it basically out of choice rather than out of necessity. And of course, like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell, please. So let's talk about the simple math. I think I've talked about this on my channel several times now, but this video is going to codify the 4% rule. What is the 4% rule? The 4% safe withdrawal rate, or 4% SWR, the 4% rule that people talk about, is basically relies on a wealth of data and information, such as the Trinity study done by Trinity College, effectively that goes deep down into the data and looks over the last 100 years, what could you withdraw from a diversified, balanced portfolio of equities and bonds, likely mostly equities, 90% equities, 10% bonds, some sort of mix thereof. Could you withdraw 4% for infinity? And the data shows that between 3 and 4% withdraw from a portfolio will allow the portfolio to continue to grow with inflation. So let's say you had hypothetically $1 million portfolio. You could withdraw $40,000 a year for infinity, adjusted for inflation. So end of year 1, right? You've got $1,020,000 because it's grown by 2% for inflation, plus you've taken out $40,000. So your $1 million has grown by about 6% or $60,000. Now you can't take out that entire $60,000 because you want your portfolio to continue to have the same buying power as the cost of goods increases. That's what inflation is all about. So you'll leave $20,000 basically in the portfolio and withdraw $40,000 each and every year. Now, if you were to live on less, if you could live on half of that, say you could live on $20,000 a year, which I believe you totally could. If you architected a house hacking scenario, you could live on even less with a family. I live on less than $20,000 a year, and I have an awesome life. I drive a vehicle. My house is 3,300 square feet. I do that by house hacking. So I basically rent out portions of my house that are unused and generate cash that pays for my living expenses. So getting living costs way down and being super efficient with your spend. That's one of the core principles, right? At the end of all my videos, you guys hear me say, the 3 keys to unlock fire, the 3 levers in this order of importance. You got to spend less, you have to learn to earn more, and then maximize your returns. And so the earning more isn't really as crazy as it sounds when you think about it, because earning more, you can retire on $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year income, right? You can retire on, if you're living on half of that, if you're making $40,000 a year, I'm talking to you, you can retire in 5 to 7 years. If you're making $100,000 a year, even better, you can retire even sooner. If you're balling out making $250,000 a year, you're the top 1%, you should already be retired. If you're not, you need to find fire and re-architect the way that you currently spend and the way that you currently are basically saving and then investing that capital. Obviously, as you build more wealth, how you invest is way more important than in the beginning of your journey. If you don't have very high net worth right now, it's more important to figure out how to spend less and earn more than it is what you invest in, right? If you have $10,000 to invest and you're making even 50% rate of return, which is really high, it's hard to do that in equities unless, basically real estate's the only vehicle I know, and business and entrepreneurship are the only ways that I know to basically make more than 50% is because of leverage. But let's say you get those kinds of returns. On $10,000, it's only $5,000 difference on your net worth. But on $1 million, we're talking $500,000 in growth. So it becomes way more important later on in your journey. In the beginning of your journey, if you can save an extra $5,000, it's probably easier if you're making an average salary in North America of 45, 50 grand a year to squeak out an extra 10% of income into savings than it is to figure out how to become the next Warren Buffett and get a 50% rate of return without the increased level of risk associated with that, where you might lose money. So that's what it's all about. We're talking about fire. This video is going to be really short. I want to do a series of videos talking about simple concepts related to financial independence, but effectively, what is the number that you need to retire? Well, you need, if you reverse engineer the 4% safe withdrawal rate, you need 25 times your annual spending, right? Or 300 times your monthly spending if you run the math. So whatever you spend in a month, multiply that by 12 and then multiply that by 25, and that's the number you need to be truly financial independence, retired early, right? To be financially independent where you never need to rely on higher rates of return than average or other different factors. But I always talk about maximizing returns and I talk about real estate. And this is specifically where I think you can retire even sooner. There's 3 different types of fire. There's lean fire. Oh, there's like 7 types of fire. There's like lean fire, regular fire, there's fat fire. Lean fire is where you have really lean expenses, like Lund Fisker at Early Retirement Extreme. Check out the videos I did with him and check out his book, great blog. Check those out. And then there's fat fire, which is like financial samurai, basically those guys who live on a little bit larger budgets. You need a budget. It also tends to live on a little bit larger budget. So some of those bloggers in the sphere that spend a little more. And then I would say regular fire is like Mr. Money Mustache, kind of in the middle, where he's spending $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 a year. Kind of anything higher than that, you're getting into the fat fire category. So different degrees of fire. And then of course there's mini fires. So you can work for 6 months, take 6 months off, work for 6 months, take 6 months off. I know people who are seasonal workers who do this, and they travel the world for 6 months a year. So they have mini retirements, and that's a version of financial independence. They're people who work perpetually part-time and live super lean. So they work just 15 hours a week and make enough that they can cover their living expenses. Maybe they make $30,000 a year and that covers all of their living expenses. And they're able to kind of live a really lean fire where they're fire from day one. And there's just so many different variations of fire where people will work for 5 years, take 10 years off, go back to work, or so many different versions of fire that you could explore. And that's why I love financial independence, retired early. The whole movement around fire is that you can basically architect the life that you want to live. So it's about freedom, but it comes from a place of understanding how to master your relationship with money. And then how to use that to create passive income for yourself that you can live on effectively. So that's all it is. That's what it's all about. And it's grounded. You can relax and live easy on the fact that you know that it's grounded in good research. If you're investing in real estate, for instance, where I get typically 25 to 100% rates of return, minimum 25% because of cheap debt and leverage, taking my returns 5 to 1. So if I get 10% rate of return on a general real estate property and I've put 20% down, I get 5 to 1 returns. Then obviously it's basically 4 to 5 times, even after the cost of that financing, roughly 4 times the return. So you can get a 10% rate of return and it becomes 40% rate of return, which is really juicy when you think of how strong that cash flow is and how recession proof it is if you're buying very smart for cash flow and buying significantly under market value from day one. That's really important. You make most of your money in real estate on the buy, and buying at market value on MLS is not the best way, I think, to do that. But that's a whole nother video series. I like to interject fire because it's a way in entrepreneurship into the fire conversation, because I meet a lot of people who are able to achieve financial independence and retire way early because they use real estate. They interject some house hacking. They buy a couple of rental properties, and all of a sudden the income from the rental properties is sustaining their entire livelihood. They're technically financially independent, though not by definition. They're a version of fire by entrepreneurship or real estate, and it's somewhat passive but somewhat active. Now they can use that to save 100% of their day job income and reach real fire, real safe withdrawal rate, real 4% rule, retired, relatively quick. So that's a huge boon to their overall strategy. And that's what this video is all about. I want to do a series of videos. If you find this valuable, let me know. How do you retire in 5 years? Well, let's run through the numbers. And I did a video on this, how you can retire in your 20s and 30s, that walks through some of the data around this and how someone on McDonald's or a minimum wage salary, 2 minimum wage boyfriend and girlfriend or partners could get together and retire in about 7 years. So you can retire in about 5 years if you live on 10% of your income. So let's say you make $90,000 a year as a couple, $45,000 the one spouse and $45,000 the other spouse. So you've got $90,000 in income. That's very average in North America. $45,000 per person is very, very average. If you could learn to house hack or create a scenario where you lived on $9,000 a year, totally doable if you're living in a duplex where you're basically getting free living because your other unit is covering your mortgage payments and most of your utilities. So you could live really relatively lean on that $9,000 just for miscellaneous spending like transportation and, for instance, trips and things like that. So that's one way you could. Let's run through the numbers really quick. You've got basically say $90,000 you're making net, and you spent $9,000 to live. You've got $81,000 to invest after year one. If you run the numbers on that, right, over 5 years, you're going to be able to, with some inflation and some raises, you'll probably be able to save, well, what's 5 times 8 is over $400,000, almost $500,000. $500,000 invested at 4% is over $20,000 a year, which is double the $9,000 you need to live. So you can retire a lot sooner at 90% savings rate than even 5 years. And that was how I was able to retire so early, was unlocking and using effectively really high savings rates coupled with really great returns in real estate. I kind of just cranked to spend less, earn more, and maximize returns. All three, I cranked them as hard as I could to unlock FIRE as soon as possible. So you can play with it and architect your own scenario. Maybe it takes you 15 years to get there, but it's better than the life sentence of 45 to death. So that's what I've got to say about financial independence, retiring early. This video is really just more of a vlog style. I wanted to get that out there to share some of the topics and start the conversation. What are you doing to better your journey to FIRE? Are you on the journey to FIRE? Do you want to retire early? Are you interested in financial independence? What strategies are you applying? Is there a video you'd like me to talk about more specifically, a specific strategy related to financial independence we can explore? Love to hear about it in the comments. I'd really appreciate that. I'm doing this entirely basically for free because I make a couple of dollars on a video I release, if that, in ad revenue. And I spent way more than that in camera equipment. So I'm really losing money on this proposition because I want to get the FIRE word out there. I want people to realize that there's a better choice than working until you're 67 years old and then having to basically, in your old age, just kind of suffer through. There's more to life than 50 years of working. You can do and chase the things that you love, and you can take those risks because you're coming from a place with FU money, right? A place of freedom. And that's what I want for everyone. Even if you enjoy working, I want you to have that freedom for yourself. So explore how to better manage your money and get better returns, earn a little bit more. I'm gonna do a series on that too, about how to get promotions at work, how to land that better job, how to grow in the corporate ladder, stuff like that. All these different areas I want to talk and continue to talk about spending less, earning more, and maximizing returns. So everyone, hope that helps you unlock a wealthier you, and I'll see you guys in the comments. Bye-bye. My car is 3,300 square feet. I do that by car stacking. So I basically rent out portions of my car that are unused and generate cash that pays for my car expenses. So getting car costs way down and being super efficient with your spend.